Good day, lords and ladies, and welcome to Legend of Keepers, a game by Goblin Studios. This is going to be a Cornish First Look on my Cornish First Look series. I tend to look at games that I may be playing on my channel or have been sent for me to review, and this is one of them. Now, Legend of Keepers is a dungeon management roguelite game with basically randomization options and company management and various bits and pieces. I'll explain some of the stuff once we get into it. These are the general settings. You have... It's fairly straightforward. I will say this game is still in an early access, so at the time not everything is complete. I believe it's in version 0.8. You can buy it on Steam. But please be aware that it is an early access, and as always, this game has been sent to me to review, so I have not bought it. So there might be a slight biasness in the nature of this because I have not spent my own money. But let's dive right in, shall we? I have played a little bit of this game. You basically have 3 characters at the moment that are available. I have played a little bit to unlock some things, but I will start a new game so we can show off the intro of it. We should go... Let's go with Cornish, and we'll go create. And we will run the tutorial to show the tutorial section of this game.
Congratulations and welcome to the Dungeons Company. As you saw on the job posting, your main task is to protect the treasures we keep in our dungeons. We don't have much time to spend training you, so please keep up. Heroes keep coming to try and take our treasures. The marketing team has worked hard to promise gold and glory to these idiotic adventurers. We have a little time before they get here, so let's place our traps and our employees to prepare a defense.
Basically, the way the game works is that you have 2 phases of the game. Basically, you have the weekly management aspect, where you will be given a list, a choice from several options per week to basically do, and then you have basically the dungeon invasion by the hero party, where they'll be trying to fight their way through a series of different challenges, from traps to spells to basically your monsters that you have as your employees, to basically, if they get to the final end, they have to fight you, which you can see your stats down here, and you have different abilities. It's turn-based, and it's a turn-based combat system. There are some things about it I do not like. Also, this guy seems to not have an arm, but he seems to be at full health. Like, he's lost an arm, like his left arm up to the elbow, but he still seems to be at full health. I think it's supposed to be a Princess's Bride reference, because he's got like the whole black outfit, black head mask, and yes, blind archer. But yeah, let's get the trap down first. This will demoralize them. Every character has a health bar and a morale bar. And the point of this game is that you either kill the heroes or you make them break and flee. And by doing so, each way gives you a different type of resource. One of them is basically tears, and one of them is blood. And you use that as your main currency alongside gold to enhance your character, to enhance your traps, and to enhance your monsters. So we're going to put this bone catapult down. It affects all areas. You can see by the little red mark under the area indicator. It applies -10 morale every time for each hit, and it applies demoralization ×2, which is basically does more. It's basically an effect, which is like over 2 turns. It would do 10 more damage each turn for 2 turns. So we'll put that down.
Dungeon. You can use it to ambush the adventurers with one of your favorite spells.
So we have access to spells.
Some rooms are dedicated to combat. This is my favorite bit. Make sure you analyze each group of adventurers. Your employees are counting on you to prepare an effective strategy. Pay attention to combatants' attacks and resistances. They are key elements for victory.
So, for example, if you can look at their stats. So the scout has a lot of armor, so physical damage is not good against her. But she has. Hold on 1 second. So yes, so for example, the scout has high armor, natural, high body armor, so physical attacks less effective. Has resistance to nature damage of 10%, so basically for every 10 points of nature damage you do to her, 1 point of nature damage to be resisted. This guy has high, well, he has okay. He's weak against fire, weak against air damage. So for example, if you did 100 points of fire damage to him, he'd take an additional 35 points of fire damage. Or if you're doing 10 points, you'd basically do an additional 3.5. I don't know if the game rounds up or rounds down. He has high armor resistance. So physical damage is not good against him, but he is weak to nature and ice. Also, you can see their abilities. Some of them like trigger automatically, and some of them take turns. This is one of the aspects of the game I do not like, which is that I come from a D&D background. I like playing D&D, where you have something called the action economy, which is how many actions a character can do per turn. The issue I have with this game is that, especially as the game goes on, a lot of the heroes get actions which trigger before anything happens. So you can have, it says this in here, the game will go, make sure you set up your party to affect their abilities and like negative stuff and all this kind of thing you do, and then suddenly they'll have an ability with they'll have 3 abilities that trigger before the combat even starts, and it'll be like reshuffling your party, giving your party massive debuffs. The game has, this is one of the issues I have with the game. It has a tactical element, but at the same time it massively stacks the combat against you by giving the hero party so many advantages. Like, for example, this guy basically applies 4 poison to a monster with the highest level of health at the start of each combat before anything else happens, and it does 20 natural damage next turn for 4 turns. So it's actually really hard in this game to kill off an adventuring party of your first group of monsters, because they get they have tons of benefits. The game is heavily stacked against you actually winning combat, in my opinion, especially in the first few fights. Alright, so we just put our party up. And this is your hero at the end, and if he dies, that's you. If you die, the game is over because you're fired. So the trap has gone off. We have demoralized them. She has an ability which ignores the first trap. So we have a spell. We're going to do Sow No Mercy, which applies in Rage for 3 turns to all the groups of monsters in the next room, which basically means we do more damage, more morale, and deal more damage, and more morale are dealt increased by 30%. Because this is the ability that this guy has. He's all about basically monsters and dealing more morale damage, more damage in general.
These insignificant humans. No reason work can't be fun. You can of course kill them, or terrify them so much they'll flee like peasants, as you see fit. Don't forget that in battles, the fastest combatants act first.
But which isn't true, because this is one thing I do find slightly, I have just briefly mentioned, they say, oh, the fastest combatant goes first. No, not really. You do have the turn order, which is when you're deploying your monsters, you can see what turn order stuff goes in. But you will always have heroes whose abilities trigger before anything else, so it doesn't matter what you do. Some hero will always get a turn off before you. So this guy has relatively low morale in comparison to health, so we should probably try and break his morale before anything else. One thing I will say, there is no hit percentage. Every hit will always hit. So it doesn't. There's basically a guarantee that the heroes are always going to hit your heroes, which isn't fantastic. I like having a hit modifier. This is one of the reasons that the game is considered to be, in my opinion, a roguelite rather than a roguelike, because it's there's always a guaranteed hit. so there's no like risks of missing or anything like that. So we broke some of them. He's going to kill him off. This is a tutorial. This always happens like this, which leaves the hero coming towards you. Right. As you can see, I'm going to admit it, I am not a fan of... yeah, we get some blood early on. I am not a fan of how the heroes get like additional actions. Yeah, I don't like the fact that the action economy in this game is very broken.
You did it.
Right.
I knew from the start that you had potential. Know that here in Dungeons Company, we reward talent and value ambition. Shoot for the moon. And so, your training ends. I'll see you again next year for your annual evaluation. If you do a good job in protecting our treasures, you'll get the promotion you deserve.
Okay, so basically this is... Sorry, I should continue what I was saying. I think the game is a good game. I like it so far. I don't like the fact that heroes get like actions before anything else, because that doesn't happen in more traditional like D&D games or anything like that. It definitely feels that they threw in like heroes get actions that trigger before anything else, because otherwise your monsters would be a lot more powerful than they are. Like, a lot of stuff I have seen is stuff like enemies get a free attack action before anybody goes first, or enemies get a massive debuff action before your monsters go first, which basically means that your monsters are always at a massive disadvantage before fighting, which basically means they're easier to kill. These are the characters you get hold of that will be available during the game. This one is not released because it's still in early access. This one is released when you get to level 10 with the Slaveholder. I haven't unlocked him yet. My other save in this game has only got to level 8. But you can see what they are basically focused on. For example, the Enchantress sees average on monsters, average on traps. He's very powerful with spells and is very bad with doing morale damage. The Slaveholder, which is basically the centaur-like character which you control, he focuses mostly on monsters, not really on traps, not really on spells, but he does a lot more morale damage. And the Engineer, not very good with monsters, fantastic with traps, not very good with spells, okay on morale damage. And each playing style will affect how you play. For example, with monsters, you're going to be predominantly just wanting to deal health damage or dealing morale damage in the combat phases rather than in the trap or spell section. See, look. And this is what you get. You get a breakdown. Information is still in early access. We can't access that. Game mods allow you to change it to easy, normal, or hard, which will affect how much experience you gain. You can also custom tailor it by shifting it around as much as you wish. I find normal is not bad. There are mods you can enable as well. You can play this on Twitch. The ranking system is still not accessible yet. So you can change how weak the heroes are. You can change how much the gold is. You can change how much health that your character, this person here, has, and how much motivation is lost with encounters. So this is basically the other side of the game. This is the management side of the game, which is that you basically have a yearly review at the end. So what happens is that every week goes by with different events. For example, you have like an encounter. You can then spend your money. You can only do one thing a week. So you can choose between having like buying stuff, trading your monsters, having random events, going on courses, whole bunch of other stuff which we'll get into in a second. Team management. Team management allows you to choose which room your employee will be deployed during the preparation phase of the dungeon. If you lose a monster, they are revived, but they suffer a penalty to their morale because they don't like being resurrected, because basically it's traumatic. If an employee motivation drops to 0, they'll go into a burnout and basically be unusable for 10 weeks, which is a lot of time. Your employee regains free motivation back when they stay in garrison and basically relax. So this is who we have. We have at the start in our room 1, we have these 4 people. a goblin, an orc, a yeti, and a skeleton archer. In room 2, we've got basically a boarman, we've got a harpy, we've got a skeleton magus, which is basically a fire mage, we've got a ghost, and we've got a flame eater, some kind of like demon. You can tell by the little indicators above their heads, for example, that's basically a beast creature, like a goblinoid. Basically, I think it's all for like beast monsters has the goblin icon. You see that you have stuff like harpies and boarmen and orcs all have the same icon. Skeletons have the skeleton icon. Demons have the little devil icon. And you get items and skills which will affect them differently. In stock, you have your traps, different kinds of traps do different kinds of things. This one is predominantly a physical damage trap, which applies physical damage and health over time loss. This one is basically an anti-morale trap, which basically debuffs the enemy and buffs your party. And this is a similar one as the first one, except it just does morale damage over time. Now, let's see. So, day 1, we've got Adventurers in the Frozen Caverns. I will give you a hint when playing this. You can normally tend to guess what their resistances will be, judging on the background that basically the characters being sown. For example, if they're in an icy conditions, they're probably going to have characters which are more resistant to ice. So it may be worth having monsters that are set up to do more fire damage, for example. So I'm going to basically put in room 1 him, and I might actually put him in room 2. And let's just get on with the first encounter. Okay, so basically, let's first have a look at the enemy heroes. As you can see, for example, we've got a priestess, we've got an elf, and we've got a magician. I don't see why it's just her job is elf. Like, shouldn't it be something like healer or something like that? Because that's basically all she is. She only has 2 attacks. One is 16 ice damage, applies elemental weakness, and you can see the description of what elemental weakness is. Reduces resistance reduced by 20 points for 2 turns. Heals 50% of one hero's maximum life after a fight once. So basically, after she does it once, she can no longer do it. Now, for example, if we have a look at the characters here, most of them have got relatively bad fire resistance and physical armor. So we probably want to throw down something. So we have two ways of doing this. We can either go straight after morale, because a lot of them have relatively weak morale, or we can go straight after health, because a lot of them actually have relatively bad armor, so they would take more physical damage from basically stuff like physical damage and bleeding. We could also do morale. We could do something like morale and then put in rage, which increases the damage. Personally, I like circular blade early on. Now, these guys have relatively bad fire resistance and physical damage. He's got natural resistance. I haven't got anything that hits the middle round, like the middle rank, which is unfortunate because he's going to be like a real pain. That is one thing I will say about this game. They do not have a lot of abilities which negates they don't have a lot of abilities which hit the middle rank, especially early on. Which is frustrating, I find. So we're going to put him up because he's got high physical armor, which is good to resist physical damage, but he's probably going to get hit by fireball. I suppose if that's... The problem is that this is one of the things I find really frustrating, is that a lot of the enemies have attacks which just hit everything. And so it's really hard to actually place your monsters anywhere, because it's one of the flaws I say this game has, which is that because there's a 100% hit mechanic in it, like every time a monster attacks, it always hits. So it's really hard to try and play strategically, because, for example, this person hits the front rank, this person can hit every rank, this person can hit every rank with relatively powerful damage. Plus, he has a skill, which means at the start of the combat, your guys are juggled about anyway. Which means it's not that good. Like, for example, I've got the archer here. like he's not actually that useful, because it's the same with this guy. Like 65 damage, fantastic. He's got 60% fire resistance, and he can only hit the back rank, so he's no use. This guy can hit the back rank and everybody, but his every attack is actually really terrible, and the enemy have fairly good resistance besides the front person to nature damage. And remember, we're only going to get about one attack off with these guys because of how stacked the combat is in favour of the heroes, because of all the actions they take before the battle and all this kind of stuff. I'm going to put a morale trap down to buff my guys. And as you can see, they all have, like, besides the back rank, this is the thing, I should have probably have kept the Yeti, had them in the game, just so I could bombard the back rank, but there was no guarantee that was going to work. So we'll put you up front. We'll put you in the back so we can kill him if he's still here. We'll put the ghost up as well so we can bombard either of them. And then let's just hope we can not let them to here, because if they get to your boss monster, it's always a pain because your boss monster regenerates so little health. So the trap goes, they all take damage. All their stacked pre-game abilities trigger, which is just frustrating like you wouldn't believe. I'm actually going to try and kill off the person in the back as soon as possible, because he's actually a really big pest. But as you can see, a lot of them have abilities which just trigger before anybody else. As you can see, we've done little damage, but they've done like tons of damage. This is how I found the combat plays out in this game, is that the heroes have a lot of AoE attacks that do a high amount of damage. Your monsters are never really anticipated to actually win a lot of the encounters. It's just that they are meant to soften them up, and it's up to your skill alone to get them past these. It's up to your skill to basically beat them with your monsters, rather than having a fair fight. Which is something I find a bit disappointing. These are spells. You can do like a morale spell, a buffing spell for your monsters, or a damage spell. Normally, I've found. But this is the thing, which is that I like this game. I think this game has a lot of premise, but at the same time, it does have issues. I find that the game is massively stacked against your monsters, because the enemies just do so much damage. So let's try and stun her, which will give us another round of combat, which will help us kill this person off, and then allows us to basically kill this person off. This is a nice combination. It doesn't always work, but we managed to win this time, and it's useful because by doing so we save our monster's morale. Now we get our rewards for a successful encounter, so we can either get Witching Gloves. Each hero has a 30% chance of affected by elemental weakness at the start of a dungeon, which is very nice. 50% chance of the monster killed come back to life as Skeleton Warrior, which is not too bad. Monsters deal just no damage to morale when their motivation is full. This is okay. These two are quite nice. I'm going to go Elemental Resistance because I find it's the most powerful. And as you can see, because we basically had 3 monsters went down, their morale went down, and we're going to have to basically cycle them out and have them rested. Now, one of the ways I have found this, I'm sorry if you can hear background noise, there's nothing I can do about it. As you can see here, we have a number of options. We have merchants, we have trainers, we have an event. These will give you breakdown of the encounter, of the action if you choose them. One thing I will warn you about: once you choose something, you can't go back from it. If you leave the choice, you go to the next week. That's something I don't like as well. I can see why they've done it to prevent people from like picking and choosing and going backwards and forwards, but like some of the time it's really frustrating because you get an event, you go into the event, you can't do the event, so you have to leave, and it's a wasted thing. I will go to the merchant because my strategy for playing the slave master is to have a lot of monsters early on. So I will basically grab the gargoyle. You can also reshuffle what kind of monsters you have. I am not going to renew. I could get a satyr, which is basically okay. His armor's alright. His health is terrible though. But he can do. It's nature damage. He's not too bad. He's got terrible stats. You can also pick up a trap here. Ice damage is always nice. But I'm going to leave. We'll go to week 2. So we could have an event. We could have a course. Let's do a course, which will basically allow us to train up one of our monsters. We lose that thing for... The thing is, like here, you receive a letter from the Monster Training Center offering to train one of your employees for a large amount of gold. The training would take 8 weeks, which basically means we can't use him for 8 weeks. But he'd get 2 levels, which is really actually quite nice. So we're going to do that. We're going to do an event. That's a really powerful character. I can't get him, so we had to reject it. So we can't do the event. As you can see, we miss out, and we go to the next week 5, which is another encounter. Now, we don't have a lot of monsters, so to be honest, what I'm going to have to do is take him out, because his morale is terrible, so he needs to rebuff. Probably what I also really need to do is I probably need to cycle this person out, put this person in room 1, and just go with it. Fortunately, they come back relatively quickly, and your combat encounters aren't so often that it becomes a problem. Another base group of basic adventurers. We are in a normal dungeon. We are basically sent to different... So let's have a look. We have an apprentice mage, an exile, which is level 2, and a barbarian. So, see for example, 12 damage to the monster with the lowest ice resistance at the start of each fight. And then this one skill gives 50% of one hero's maximum morale back after each fight. And gives him enrage at the start of each fight. So this is the thing you had to balance, which is that like before combat even starts, these guys will have 3 actions triggering, which is a pain. So let's look at it. They have all relatively bad ice resistance, besides the person in the back. So we probably want to pick something that... Let's see. We could do air damage. Fire damage isn't going to be great, unfortunately. So it's going to be these 3. They haven't got much armor, so again, another circular blade is good for getting through their armor. We could also go morale if we wished. Might work, to be honest. Give a debuff with that, and then we'd go something like this. Then the boss fight. Your health regenerates over time as the boss monster, so you really don't want to get hit because the regeneration is really slow. The health regeneration is really slow, and let's put it this way: the enemies hit you a lot as the boss monster. It's one of the action economy things for this game is that the heroes hit you for a ton and you do very little in return. So if they come at you as a full party, you're likely going to lose. Or if you don't lose, you get so badly more that the next fight you're in actually beats you. And that's one of the functions of this game. The point is that you're never really, until you're higher level, it's really hard to actually, win the campaign, because it's a roguelite, so you're supposed to basically get beaten, spend your level up points for your character, which you only get at the end of the game when you lose, to basically then put it in to the game, back into your character, get more stat bonuses early on, so your characters are stronger, your monsters are stronger, you're better at dealing with the enemy. That whole shebang. Right, so relatively, let's do morale damage, we could do bleed. Let's put some bleed on him, help chip through his health. Right. Let's do freezing breath. And then we'll do glaive. There's no point trying to do morale damage because they got someone that will basically take off morale damage per turn. Well, they'll someone who will repair morale damage per turn. And then as the AoE spell goes off as always, they have a lot of AoE spells. I do like this game. For as much as I'm complaining, there's just things about it that I find frustrating. Like, I don't like the fact how the heroes get like a ton of actions before the game even starts. But that's just me. Right. I'm gonna go with straight up damage with these guys because they have a morale buffing character. So it's gonna be really hard to repair. Well, not repair, but to deal morale damage because every turn they are doing things that were basically. I'm not phrasing this very well. Basically, there's no point in trying to do morale damage because this person has a 50% chance of restoring one hero's morale back after a fight once. Oh, I suppose I could have. I didn't see the point of it though. So we're going to continue to punch the living daylights out of the person in the front. I will shoot this guy in the back with this character though to soften him up for the boss. Let's take him out. And then we'll finish this one off. There we go, we won. So we can get another circular blade, you can hit some traps, which is very nice, but he only hits the front rank. If it's already affected by demoralize, I'm going to take the money, because money's always very nice. Right, so 4 people went down, so morale got trashed again. We could train someone, we could build a better trap, we could have an event. Let's take this person out of the roster so that they can heal back up. Same with him. This is how the Slave Master works. You do a lot of rotating of monsters around. We have a couple of events. Let's check out like the training room. You can spend your money to train your monsters up, and by doing so, they unlock increased stats. For example, if we selected the Skeleton Archer, and as you can see, with a level up, his health would go up, his power would go out. Power determines how much health morale damage is dealt to combatant. That would go up. Sometimes, for example, they will unlock new abilities, like or their actual damage will go up for their abilities. Like for example, here we take this. More health is he gets more health, but he also gets a front attack, which is that 6% fire damage applied, free burn, which is very nice if you want to hit the front rank. And this develops over time. So let's train that. So he's a bit better. And we don't have any money to do anything with that in. Oh, we do. We have a little bit. We can boost our character's health. This is the other thing. This is your character here. As you can see, they start with 1,200 health for this character anyway. They get 24 points of health back a week. So if you think about it, in 5 weeks, you're basically going to get like 125 health back after 5 weeks at the base start. So your character can really not get hit because if you get to the boss fight with a hero's full party, you're probably going to lose because you have one attack and they have 3 attacks per turn plus however many bonus actions they get at the start of combat, which normally apply stacking damage, so your character is going to probably get slaughtered early on. It's one of the frustrating things about this game, which is that from what I've seen, it really emphasizes you punching. Like if you can't kill the whole party like with your monsters, you should try and kill as many of the heroes as you can, so that only one hero is fighting your boss, well, your character, so you have a quicker chance. You're faster at basically removing him from the field of battle before they do more damage to your character's health. Let's see, do we get an event? Yay, we get some money back, excellent. We can get a therapist, which is okay. Or we could improve one of our traps. I'm going to get the saw blade because it's a very nice trap. And I shall improve this trap as well because that's always very nice. Next 2 monster groups. That's very powerful. Excuse me a second, folks.
The company owns several dungeons that need protecting. We only send teams when our specialists inform us that a group of adventurers are approaching. You will sometimes have the choice of several contracts. The more dangerous the heroes, the higher your bonus if you succeed. Thanks to the company's portal service, sending you to the other end of the world is a matter of moments.
Basically, this is like the difficulty thing. This is like any other kind of roguelike or roguelite game. You can try a harder fight, but you get better rewards for it. I will show off this fight quickly so you can see what I mean by the scaling of the game progression. So, for example, we've got a level 2 herbalist, a level 1 thug, and a level 2 barbarian. Now, for example, as you can see, as the game goes on, more of these passive abilities will pop up. For example, the healer can't be affected by bleeding. And you get different types. I was hoping for some more of the elite enemies to turn up. She also heals one of the heroes 50% after the fight once, which is not great. I was hoping for a bit more showy off like paladins. You get stuff like paladins, necromancers, which are a champion class hero, knights. All kinds of your traditional D&D fare turn up, and I was really hoping we could show some of that off, but I can't get out of this, so I'm just going to basically give my review of the game now. Dungeon of Keepers is a very interesting dungeon management game. I like a lot of the mechanics about it. I like how you have to manage your employees. I like how you have to manage your finances and various bits and pieces and keep your character's health and stuff up. There are features about it I do not like. Which are basically broken down into 2 areas, really. One, I don't like the fact that the action economy in the game is very much stacked in the favour of the heroes, where they get a lot of bonus actions which trigger, or a lot of like abilities which trigger before combat. I don't mind the passives, like, oh yeah, they can't be affected by bleed. That's fine. I don't mind that. I don't mind the fact that, for example, this character heals one hero to 50% of their max life after a fight once. I don't mind that. What I don't like is nature damage. Like, basically, you apply poison to a monster of the highest level at the start of each fight, which is a lot of damage. It's 20 points of damage, for example. If we look at this character here, he has 70 points of health. So, in 2 turns, just from his skill, which activates it before the fight, this character will kill this character, even if he doesn't attack him. And you may say, "Oh, but Cornish, this character only this character has this ability, and all the others are just buffs." Yeah, but trust me, as the game goes on, pretty much all these passive buffs that they are doing, like, for example, applying rage to the start of each fight, a lot of them very quickly turn into, like, do an AoE effect at the start of each fight, do a massive debuff ability to all monsters at the start of this fight, do basically a ludicrous amount of damage to one monster at the start of this fight, and it becomes really quickly that your monsters pretty much cannot stop, like, your first party monsters cannot stop the heroes or even really impact them that much, and so it becomes quite a grindy mechanic where your first party of monsters pretty much always gets wiped out, and it's really up to your second group of monsters and your boss to basically, and eventually a hero monster that you can get after you complete the first monthly quote, like the first chapter of the story. You basically get like a colossal boss, like a colossal monster, like a Hydra or a Lich, or a skeleton like knight or something that pops up. I'm just using these examples. I had the Hydra, which is a monster you can get, which will pop up before here, which is basically like an elite monster, like a sub boss that they have to fight before they go up against your master, up against you, which weakens them even more. But the thing is that as the game goes on, the more combat becomes stacked in favour of the heroes, the more aggressive passive abilities trigger before the game. And it feels to me that it's unfair in some ways, where it becomes quite a unbalanced system where I've lost whole parties of monsters just to pre-actions alone. Combined with the fact that there's a 100% hit mechanic in this game, so every time they attack you, they hit. It makes the combat really stacked against you as the Dungeon Master, which is not something that happens in, say, D&D and stuff like that. Like a good DM, which is the Dungeon Master in that system, will always have a risk that the heroes will miss because it is a dice rolling system, so there's a chance of missing. In this, not so much. And this plays into the other flaw that I dislike about this game, which is that if you get to the master fight, to your character, with a full hero party, it's very, very hard, especially later on in the game where it's nearly impossible, it's very, very hard to win. Because, for example, not only do they have 3 attacks per turn compared to your 1, which is not too bad, because your monster does a lot of damage. Your Dungeon Master does a lot of damage to a single attack, and there are combos and upgrades which you can do to make him even more powerful. The issue comes with a lot of their stacking abilities. For example, these two. If these two get to me on their own, his abilities will stack because basically he will get a free action to apply a ton of natural poison damage, and then he'll basically continue to apply it with every attack, which means it will stack and increasingly become more and more damaging, and this person will basically do natural damage as well, while applying a resistance reduction ability to that. So my character will get absolutely wrecked by these two people, and you have to remember that health regenerates so slowly in this game outside of particular events that can pop up where you can pay money to get healed or get healed for a little bit, or you can train your boss monster to have more regeneration or more health, but these things are few and far between and they cost resources to do. So every time your boss monster gets into a physical fight with heroes, it's always a loss, in my opinion. You always take damage, you're always making your monster weaker because it takes him so long to heal up. And if a full party gets to you, it's game over pretty much. So if it's not game over, your boss monster is so badly beaten up that he runs the risk of being knocked out by a single hero the next time there's an encounter, because he won't have healed that much. I do think they need to balance the combat economy in this game a bit more, because at the moment it feels like you're at a massive disadvantage running with the Slave Master, I find, because the heroes just tear through your stuff so much. I still think it's a good game. I think it has a really good premise. I love the concept of it. I love the artwork. I didn't say this beforehand. The artwork is beautiful. I like the animations. I like all the little nods and references to other D&D lore and like other fantasy games and like fantasy films and stuff. It's all very nice. I do think there needs to be more balance to the game. Also, there's your items upgrade and all various bits and pieces, but I never really got into any of that. There's a lot of depth in the game, but some of the issues I do have take the fun out of the game for me, especially with the fact that it's really hard as the Dungeon Master just to sort of win fights. That's just how it is. I find that the game has been balanced in such a way that you're always at a massive disadvantage and you're always going to lose at least most of your fights. I've had very few fights as the Slave Master where I've wiped out the heroes of my first group of minions. It's nearly impossible. Which is something I think they should readdress. So in summary, a good game. If you like management simulators, this is basically a more fun version to have a look at. At the current price, which I believe is £14 or £15 UK pounds, British pounds, it may be something that you want to wait for a sale on. As I said, I got this for free for a review copy, but my opinion of it is that it's a good, solid dungeon management game. Yes, it has flaws, and hopefully those flaws get readdressed, but I think if you enjoy it, you should go and check it out. This has probably gone on a bit longer than I anticipated, but hey ho. If you have liked, please press the like button. If you were subscribed, please press the subscription button. And I shall see you all again next time, folks. This has been Dungeon of Keepers, and I shall see you again next time. Goodbye.